Welcome to the Homeschool Show from North Carolinians for Home Education. Our goal is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. I'm your host, Matthew McDill, and we have in the studio again as our co-host, Rhonda Marshall.
Glad to be here.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How
Great.
about you?
Doing good. Good to see you.
Well, let me tell you about the show today. First, we have Homeschool Conversations. Today, we'll talk with Natalie Vecchione. And then in our homeschool news, NCHE has asked 3 questions of the candidates for the North Carolina House of Representatives, the North Carolina Senate, the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and the North Carolina Supreme Court. So we'll hear those answers. And in our homeschool tip of the week, we're going to give you tips for homeschooling special needs children. And finally, in our Homeschool Reality Moment, Megan Gramer sent in a video for us to tell us why she loves NCHE.
This is pretty nice.
I like
We
that.
like it when people love NCHE.
I know. We like that. I can't wait to see it.
That's great. So for our homeschool conversations today, we're really excited to talk to Natalie Vecchione. She is a fetal alcohol spectrum disorder parent and advocate, podcaster, and author. So we'll be saying FASD as we go forward. That's what that stands for. Most importantly, she is a wife and a homeschool mom of 2. Natalie and her husband, John, were blessed to grow their family through domestic adoption. In October 2020, Natalie and John co-founded FASD Hope, which is a podcast, website, and a place for awareness, information, and inspiration for those people whose lives have been touched by FASD. Natalie co-authored a book with Cindy LaJoy called Blazing New Homeschool Trails, educating and launching teens with developmental disabilities. Welcome to the show, Natalie.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great that you could be here.
We're so glad that you're here. So nice to meet you. Can you tell us a little bit more about your children?
Sure. So like Matthew said, my husband and I were blessed to grow our family through domestic adoption. Our son is almost 20 years old, and he came to us when he was 2.5 weeks old as a medical needs adoption, which we later found out was related to him having an FASD. And he completed his homeschool journey back in 2020. He graduated as a carpentry apprentice. And now he currently lives interdependently, and I'll use that word a couple times during our conversation. He lives with two roommates, and he works part-time at a home improvement store. And so kind of still continuing the trade aspect of what he learned. And our daughter is almost 7. And we've been homeschooling her, from the get-go. Our family has been a homeschool family for 8 years. And our daughter, we have an open adoption with her birth parent. So we have a very different adoption journey with her. And my husband and I, we knew the Lord was calling us to start FASD Hope to help other families and people out there who have children, loved ones that have an FASD. So that's really our ministry. And then it'll be a year ago in June, Cindy LaJoy, who's been a speaker at NCHE conferences.
Great.
Cindy LaJoy and I co-authored Blazing New Homeschool Trails because we both have now young adults that have an FASD. She did her homeschooling journey, her final year of their homeschool, really amazing. They created they created Buckaroo's Slices and Scoops, which is a pizza and ice cream restaurant in Montrose, Colorado, where they live. And we share our journey of homeschooling our son in the old-fashioned way of carpentry and apprenticeship. So he was a one-on-one apprentice for almost 3 years during the last years of his homeschool. So through our book, Cindy and I share our journeys, our similarities, and how we both created new paths for our kids that have an FASD. And it's really applicable not only for kids, for teens who are being homeschooled who have developmental disabilities, but also just for teens and young adults who don't have college as an option after they're done with homeschooling. So I guess that's the long answer to your question.
So how common is FASD
So a
Yeah.
study done here in North Carolina by Dr. Philip May at UNC Chapel Hill. He did a sentinel study in 2018, and it revealed that in the United States, it's estimated that 1 in 20 children have an FASD. And that was 2018, and that was before the pandemic. And the numbers of consumption of alcohol by women who are of maternal age, those numbers have skyrocketed since the pandemic. So that's a really conservative
Wow.
estimate. It's actually considered to be the most common developmental disability in the Western world.
Wow.
Wow, I had no
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah, I didn't know.
Yet
Yeah.
it's the most undiagnosed, underdiagnosed, and misdiagnosed. And our experience, it took us 15 years for our son to get an appropriate
Oh my
diagnosis.
goodness.
Goodness, that's a long time. So, can you
Yeah.
tell us some about the importance and benefits of homeschooling for you in relation to this?
So absolutely. We started our homeschool, we started our son out in a couple of different journeys. We tried public school, we tried private school, we tried Christian school, we even tried a hybrid school, and just none of them met the needs of him. The thing about FASD and other brain-based diagnoses is we know that our children, the Lord has put gifts in them. They have needs, and they learn at their own pace, which is a beauty of homeschooling. We're able to educate our children at their own pace. But at the same time, they have these wonderful talents and gifts that homeschooling allows us to really shine a light on and bring out who God created them to be. So for us, homeschooling is really, it's such a blessing. And it continues with our daughter. Our daughter has dyslexia and a form of epilepsy. So we continue to homeschool her for the same reasons we homeschooled our son, so they can learn at their own pace, so we can support their needs, and we can really shine a light and really just help them share their strengths and their gifts that God has given them.
Right. That's great. So I mentioned in this book, Blazing New Homeschool Trails. How about giving us a little preview or sharing some ideas from there?
Absolutely. So Cindy and I share our respective journeys as homeschool moms of kids, now young adults with FASD. And she shares her journey. She adopted her children from Eastern Bloc countries, and 3 of her 5 children have an FASD. She lives in Montrose, Colorado. Like I said before, she's been a presenter at the NCHE conferences. And she formed Blue Collar Homeschool, which is an online Facebook group and a website. So Cindy shares her journey about how they homeschooled, what she learned, and how they went on to create Buckaroo Slices and Scoops. And then I share my journey, our family's journey, about how I cold called over 50 carpenters in our area to find 2 amazing carpenters who took on our son as an apprentice,
What
and
a
how we
blessing.
created really an old-fashioned apprentice like they did hundreds of years ago,
Right.
which is so underrated. I mean, that quality of education our son received from his 2 apprenticeship teachers, he could not have received that in a trade school. So we share that experience. And then Cindy and I, we share tips and tools for homeschooling teens with developmental disabilities. We share our aha moments and how we found support in unique ways. Of course, we share our faith and how the Lord brought us through in these journeys, and how he continues to bring us through in these journeys, because we know homeschooling with a teen, young adult with a developmental disability, it doesn't end. Honestly, it doesn't end when you're done. It continues on and on, well into their 20s. And we talk about that. We talk about a concept that's really big in the special needs community called interdependence, which is what we're actually doing now with our son, where, there is a level of independence, but we know with our teens and young adults that have developmental disabilities, they continue to need those supports. So we share about how you can create those, for your teen or young adult. And then just finally, our reflections in what we've learned. And we even have a companion journal that you can request from us that, if you buy our book, we have a personalized companion journal that parents can use in developing strategies and new ideas for their teens with developmental disabilities.
And what would you say some of the most common questions or problems that come up from parents are related to FASD or just, special needs in general?
Sure. So with FASD, it's the most misdiagnosed, undiagnosed, and underdiagnosed. So I would definitely tell parents that if their child has received what we call the ABC alphabet soup of acronyms, and no strategies, no techniques, no even medications, address those symptoms, that to consider having that child evaluated for an FASD, because even one drop of alcohol anytime during pregnancy affects that unborn child. So the most common questions about FASD are, well, I stopped drinking before when I found out I was pregnant. Is my child still going to be affected? And the answer is yes. From the moment of conception to the moment of birth. So many organizations, including the American Academy of Pediatrics, just one of the many organizations, no amount of alcohol is safe during pregnancy. So even if there's a hint of it, have it ruled out. Here in North Carolina, we have two wonderful FASD diagnostic clinics, one in Asheville and one in Charlotte. And if any of your listeners want to email me through my contact information, I'm happy to point them in that direction. With regards to homeschooling teens with developmental disabilities, I have to say that one of the most common questions that Cindy and I have received are, I don't know what to do. I was thinking so much about college and now I don't know what to do. And I have to say, and Cindy says the same thing, that one of the many hats we wear as homeschool parents is guidance counselor and really investigator.
Definitely.
So just like you did when your kids were little, keep kind of a journal or a record of their strengths. So if they love computers, if they love art, if they love working with their hands, start developing those into electives and into things that they can learn about. And then what Cindy and I did, turn it into lived experience through your homeschooling. Again, we want people to know that not going to college, we're totally respectful. Anybody wants to go to college, that's fantastic. But so many of our kids that have developmental disabilities, that's just not in their trajectory. So what we want to share is that trades, skilled trades, artisans, entrepreneurships, anything like that, it's not a less than path. It's actually a beautiful path that's just like the cover of our book shows. It's just one that's not really taken that much. And even if your teen or older kid, just doesn't have a diagnosis, but just is not really thinking about college, there are so many opportunities out there. And through our book is only 100 pages. It's a really easy, quick read, because we know that when you're in the trenches, especially when you have kids that have developmental disabilities, you don't have time for like a 400, 500 page book. So we really see our book as, and we pray that it will bless people as a guidebook, something they can go back to and help them in those years of trying to figure out what's next after homeschooling.
And I'd want to add in that the attitude and the strategy and the approach that you were just talking about is really important for all homeschool students or for all students. In other words, not just for those who may be struggling with any particular learning difficulties, but we've tried in our home to free our kids from the you have to go to college path. Two of our kids are going to college. That's great, but they don't have to. And so I think really being attentive and being a student of your children, identifying those strengths, just like you said, is a great word for all parents to make sure that they're equipping and empowering their kids to do whatever it is that God's created them to do.
That's so important.
Absolutely.
So in about a minute left, if you had like your final, this is what I want to tell those parents out there, how would you want to encourage them today?
God has placed these wonderful talents and gifts in your child. And especially as they get older and start thinking about the future, it's your privilege and your blessing to be that detective, to be that guidance counselor, to be that one that pulls out those gifts so that they can truly be who God created them to be, whether artisan, tradesman, anything like that. Really, it's a blessing, and it's challenging, but it's so worth it. And I'm just so thankful for homeschooling and how it's blessed our family with learning the gifts of our children.
Right.
Wow. Natalie, thanks so much for sharing with us today, both your passion and your expertise. Natalie also wrote an excellent article in our Greenhouse magazine called Treasure Finders, Homeschool with Special Needs. You can find that article at nche.com/treasures-finders.
And you can go to FASDhope.com to find out more about what Natalie's doing. Is that the best place you want to send them?
Yes, FASDhope.com or FASD Hope Podcast, anywhere you find your podcasts.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Natalie. It's great talking to you.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Well, now on to our homeschool
Yeah.
news. So first, Thrive Hotels. If you're coming to the Thrive Conference, you want to stay in a hotel, right? So there's, if you need a hotel in the area, we've got some important information for you. NCHE has a block of rooms reserved, and we've made arrangements for special rates near the convention center. So after the cutoff dates, though, the rooms will not be held by NCHE, and the rates will be higher. So take advantage now. When making reservations, be sure to mention that you are within the NCHE Thrive Conference. Go to nche.com/thrive/lodging to see the list of hotels, the prices, and the cutoff dates. This is important. The cutoff dates range from May 4th to May 11th. And can we make a suggestion? I make a suggestion.
Yeah, for sure.
Stay on site for the best conference experience.
Yeah.
The Embassy Suite and the Marriott are both part of the conference facilities. It makes it so much easier to go put books and do all
Right.
that stuff. So, yeah.
If you're coming, you might as well get a discount on your
Yes,
hotel.
for sure.
So beat the deadlines there.
Absolutely.
All right. The other news item today is related to those questions that we were able to ask the candidates for North Carolina Assembly and various court positions. Our mission, of course, is to help you homeschool with confidence and joy. And one of the ways that we do that is so important is that we protect your right to homeschool in North Carolina. That means we're very active in the North Carolina Assembly. We try to stay present and connected there. And as we look forward to the elections coming up, I don't know if everyone's looking forward to it, but the elections are coming up. And we have a primary coming up at May 17th for North Carolina Assembly and some court positions. We wanted to make sure you had the information that you need. And so we have sent 3 questions to all of the candidates that we had emails for, which is 380 candidates out of 409 that we actually had contact information for. And here are the 3 questions we asked. What is your opinion of school choice? What is your view on home education? And third, do you believe any changes need to be made to the homeschool law in North Carolina? Explain your answer. So we sent these to the candidates for the North Carolina House of Representatives, the North Carolina Senate, the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and the North Carolina Supreme Court. So we have collected these answers, and they are now available for you. You can look at these answers right now if you go to nche.com/candidate-survey-results. If you go to our homepage, nche.com, you'll find a link there. Easy to find and click that. Also, in our show notes, we'll have a link to that. So you're going to want to definitely go and find out what these candidates are saying about their views of homeschooling. All right, so we're going to go to our homeschool tip of the week and discuss a little bit about some special needs. And I think we've already covered one of the most important things, and that is the thing that's so great about homeschooling, which is the flexibility and the individualized customizable education is why it's a great option for special needs students.
Absolutely,
Right.
it is.
And one of the things we also wanted to talk about very quickly is the fact that there is a state requirement to take nationally standardized tests every year
In North
for
Carolina,
students.
right.
And that really makes some parents with students with special needs a little bit nervous. So we want to make sure and make it clear that there is no requirement for the grade level or age that of the type of test you would give to your kids. Right? So I think that right there gives you the freedom to pick a level that you think is most appropriate for your kids, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about some tips for kids with dyslexia because I had one.
Okay, yeah.
So first, I think in relation and how Natalie even said this, that, know that God's with you when you have a child, with all your children, whether they have special needs or not, but he's with you and he's for you. Trust your gut. Sometimes kids, especially boys, read later or read fluently later or enjoy reading
Sure.
later. So if you feel like, though, that you have a concern, then address that, whether that be a test or something like that, so you can pinpoint that the child has a problem. Don't be surprised if it's new to your family. Our sixth one was the one that had a learning challenge. So if you're just used to always having kids that don't have those, then that can be challenging. Our tester did a battery of tests from the Woodcock-Johnson that helped her identify that it strongly indicated that he had dyslexia. But it's not a diagnosis, and that's important. Okay. And if you need a diagnosis, it's really critical that you have to usually go to a psychologist to get that done. It can be kind of costly to get that done. But if you need college entrance exam accommodations, or in a college setting, you wanted accommodations within the classroom, whether that be a note taker or whatever, you have to have a diagnosis, an official diagnosis, in order to have accommodations like that. Another option that I've heard about from one of my testers is that oftentimes university education departments often offer reduced or even perhaps free testing for dyslexia diagnosis. So that might be an option if you need that. You could check your university. I'm not sure if it's everywhere in North Carolina. But for working with children with dyslexia, it's really important to have a multisensory approach. We talked about some of that a little bit in episode 18 when we were talking about helping our kids learn. But we use the Barton Reading and Spelling, which is parent directed and has wonderful videos and trainings that does it. But you may need to look at an Orton Gillingham trained tutor that you want to utilize during the week. But they do need to be seen usually 2 to 3 times per week to help make the accommodations. Sometimes there's private schools that may have different kind of schools within them for people with learning challenges, so you might be able to utilize that. But just learn all you can about your child's diagnosis, but recognize your child's more than your diagnosis and investigate all your treatment options. We have a page on the NCHE website that's great that has special needs resources, so be sure to look at those, or HSLDA. But remember, you're your child's best teacher, and home education can give your child a completely personalized and excellent education, even if you have a child with special needs.
That's great. And we'll have that link for the special needs page in our notes as well, so that you can check out some of those other resources. All right, we're going to move to our Homeschool Reality Moment. And Megan Kramer sent in a video, as we said, just to tell us how much she loves NCHE.
Yay.
So we want to hear about that. Let's see what she has to say.
Hi, I'm so thankful for NCHE. If I had to sum it up in one word why I'm thankful for them, it's resources. They are an amazing resource for homeschool families. Whenever a new homeschool mom comes and asks me, help me, what curriculum should I use? They hate my answer because I know that there's not a one-size-fits-all curriculum for every family. So I always send them to the NCHE website. Also, I tell them about all the amazing webinars that NCHE has to offer for homeschool families. I'm also super thankful that NCHE stays on top of all the homeschool laws for all of us busy moms that can just focus on schooling. So we're super, super thankful for all that NCHE does.
Thanks for sending that in, Megan. And we would love to get some more homeschool reality moments from you. You can send your video in, and show us what's going on in your homeschool. Maybe just tell us a story or show us some great homeschool hacks. You can go to nche.com/upload-reality-moment or to our main show page, and you'll have links to see how to set that up.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for joining us this week. We love to hear from you. So send your questions or your feedback to the Homeschool Show at nche.com.
That's right. And we would like to ask you to do what you can to help other people find this show. One super easy thing to do is just share it with your friends. Tell them about it and send them the link or something like that. Another thing you can do, of course, is go to YouTube and go to whatever podcast platform you use, especially Apple Podcast, and rate the show or leave a review. Tell us how much you love it. And that way it will also make it more visible so that other people can see it as well. So once again, we're so glad that you joined us today. And until we see you again next week, continue to homeschool with confidence and joy.